Okay, joining me now from Darlene Graham's election headquarters in Columbia, South Carolina is MSNOW's Michael Schnell. Also with us, host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller, and my old colleague, Jim Messina, who just took his readers off. We can see you, who is the former campaign manager for President Barack Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. We love readers. It's all good. Michael Schnell, let me start with you. You were actually on the ground. I remember running into you in the hallway when you were heading to South Carolina last week. So you've been out there for several days talking to voters. A couple things have happened over the last several days or week plus. I mean, there was the flub by Darlene Graham in that debate. There was also a huge influx of money from Trump's outside PAC, but she pulled it off. She's only leading. She only so far is about 5 points of a spread here. Talk about how we got here, what you heard from voters, if anything was really a decider in the last week or so.
Yeah, Jen, it's certainly a win, of course, for Darlene Graham here, her earning the nomination to go on to November's general election for the full 6-year term. It's also a victory for Donald Trump. He could not have had more skin in this race. He had encouraged Darlene Graham to run for the full 6-year term. He endorsed her candidacy. He was in Myrtle Beach on Friday rallying for her in person. There were also 2 tele-rallies. And then, as you were just talking about, more than $800,000 from a pro-Trump super PAC pouring money into this race in the final days. So it's a win for him, but he tried really hard to get there. And I think partially it's because he realized that his credibility was on the line. He is the one who put Darlene Graham into this position. In fact, he had even said during his tele-rally yesterday, I'm the one who got her to run. We have to get her over the finish line. And it came at a precarious moment for his political clout. He's seen a number of primary losses in recent weeks, particularly last week with those 2 Florida House races and the Wyoming race. And then let's also talk about the initial race for the special election here with the Senate race. More than 60% of voters had voted for somebody other than Darlene Graham, which means they sided with somebody other than Donald Trump's endorsement. So he tried hard to get it, and ultimately he did. And I think a lot of it came down to Donald Trump. As you mentioned, I've been in the state a number of times the past 3 weeks talking to voters here in Lexington, in Columbia, in Myrtle Beach. And something that I heard constantly was that voters were so deeply wrestling with this decision because on one hand, they wanted to support Donald Trump and back his endorsed candidate. On the other hand, there was concerns about her experience. That debate gaffe exacerbated those concerns. I heard from folks who said they were unsure of her candidacy because she didn't have a proven track record to get things done in Washington. At the end of the day, it seems that Trump has won out against policy and experience. But one more thing I'll leave you with, Jen. This doesn't mean Darlene Graham is not going to be under the microscope for weeks and months to come, because voters still don't fully understand what she stands for. She has given very little detail on what policy positions she's in favor of. In fact, she said affordability is her number 1 issue, but when pressed yesterday, she couldn't give a specific on what she'd do. I asked her yesterday about the 2020 election if she agreed with her brother that Joe Biden was lawfully elected and that she would have certified the results. She gave a non-answer, and she said she's more to the right than her brother on immigration, but hasn't given too many specifics. So she may have won. She may be moving up to November to take on Democrat Annie Andrews. She may as well be the senator from South Carolina for the next 6 years. But I think there's still a lot to learn about her. And I think voters are still going to be asking those questions.
I mean, listen, a basic of politics is you have to actually have a position and tell people what you think in order for them to know what you think. Michael Schnell, thank you so much for being there and for doing all the reporting on the ground as well. We've seen some great stuff from you. All right, Tim and Jim, let me start with you. Why there's so much to talk about here, including bigger picture, but I just have to start by asking you why Trump cares so much about Darlene Graham, in your view, and what if anything we should take away from the results here?
Well, I think that there are a couple things at play here. Trump is petty, and Ralph Norman, despite being a big supporter of the insurrection and one of the organizers of the insurrection rally, actually, then ended up endorsing Nikki Haley, his home state former governor, and I think that this is just as simple as that. It's payback for Trump. But Darlene Graham, on top of that, offers Trump really kind of his model senator. right? Somebody who's
Ask
just
no
a
questions.
total empty vessel. Yeah, they'll just do whatever he wants. And she doesn't know anything about the issues. She doesn't have any thoughts on her own. Why would she possibly buck Donald Trump on anything? She doesn't know enough to disagree with him about anything. So, I think that if you're Donald Trump, in Darlene Graham, you get exactly what you're looking for, which is just basically like a Russian Duma style support from a Republican in the Senate for whatever you want to do, whether it's illegal or not, or crazy or not. And I think that he's excited about that possibility.
I just played this, but I did love when she was asked a very basic question about affordability and bringing costs down, and she was like, "I'll see when I get there." It's like, lady, you're in the Senate. You're in the Senate currently. Jim, I mean, I don't want to be, none of us are rosy here. We're never rosy together here. She only won by less than 5 points in this primary. Donald Trump his outside PAC had to pump a bunch of money in here. There are a bunch of people who chose not to vote for her. She can't answer basic questions about policy. Annie Andrews is very compelling. She's great on TV. She's got an incredible bio, but still South Carolina. Does this change anything? What does this all look like as we look ahead to November? Maybe do Republicans have to spend money here? Maybe. We don't know yet. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think they might have to. And, the congressman who lost tonight said he thought if Darlene won, that Democrats could win the seat in November. This is a state, Jen, we haven't won any statewide race since 1992. And so it would be a very big poll for the Democrats to actually put this state into play. And if you look at, you talked about this earlier, a Democratic candidate, Dr. Andrews, is really compelling. I've spent time with her. And, if there's anyone who could do this, I would want to run against Darlene Graham. And the fact that, she doesn't come into this election with a solid Republican base, as Tim just said, they had to do everything in their power to get her over the line, and she only won by 5 points here. You continue to have a Republican Party split on the president, split on his actions, split against some of the tariffs and some of the other issues like the beef stuff that is roiling the Oklahoma governor's race tonight. And now being on Donald Trump's side is starting to become a real problem in general elections, maybe even in South Carolina.
Which would be, it's really incredible. And I agree, Annie Andrews is very compelling. It's still, they got to spend money there. It means they can't spend it other places, which is also important for people to remember. Okay, we're also watching another primary runoff. This is Oklahoma's Republican governor primary runoff, where former state lawmaker and Trump-backed candidate Mike Mazzei is facing Gentner Drummond, the state's attorney general. Even though Drummond is not endorsed by Trump, he has touted his connections to him. It seems like that's a theme we often see, even though Trump called him a fake Republican. So we're still getting results, but it's very, very, very close here. This would be number 11 of Trump endorsements if Mazzei, if I'm saying his name correctly here, I think I am, loses. Tim, what do you think? What do you make of that?
Well, I think that Trump's scorecard is not actually that important unless it changes the behavior of other Republican politicians, right? I guess it's a little funny to make fun of him. His ego is wrapped up in his endorsement record. He lies about it. So, at some level it matters to him. But it's meaningful in that if Republicans start to feel like they can buck him in certain ways without having the fear of definitely losing a primary. And, there's one thing I saw this week that really caught my eye, which is Tom Cotton running for Senate in Arkansas, incumbent senator, obviously, distanced himself from Trump on this beef issue that Jim mentioned. And you haven't seen Tom Cotton distance himself from Trump on anything, even though he's very supposedly a China hawk. There have been a lot of potential things Trump has done he could have distanced from. He hasn't. And to me, that signaled a couple of things. One, there was an Arkansas poll that showed him losing, actually, to the farmer candidate that's running there and another compelling candidate. I think both Arkansas and South Carolina are stretches for the Democrats in the Senate race, but it's interesting to see that. So maybe he feels like, he has to actually pay attention to his race, which is meaningful. But it also, I don't know, it means that they don't have the, fear of Trump. And I think that could potentially lead to some differences. Just one other thing on South Carolina really quick. In the Charleston area, there's a great candidate in the House race, Nancy LaCour, who's a veteran. And, even if Annie Andrews can't get across the line, I do think that a softness or weakness of the Republican base not liking Darlene Graham could mean that in these other races, you could see a Democrat win, in kind of a tradition. That's Nancy Mace's old seat. So that'd be a pretty big flip for a district to go from old Nancy Mace to somebody like Nancy LaCour. That'd be a Nancy upgrade, if you will. So that's something to monitor.
I talked to her the night she got the nomination, and my takeaway was she's intense and I'm a little intimidated, but I like her. And you want her in Congress, right? It's like all of the above. Let me ask you, Jim, because the other thing we've seen, to the point of Tim's, point about changing behavior. I'm not sure this is a massive behavior change, but I just mentioned how Ralph Alvarado, a Trump-endorsed candidate running in a House district that Trump won by double digits in 2024, removed mentions of Trump from his website. And he used to say, not that long ago, he used to say he was an America First fighter. He's now calling himself an independent leader. He also removed a picture of himself with Trump. This is in a district Trump won by double digits less than 2 years ago. I know why you make this pivot, but what do you make of that?
I don't think it's going to work. The problem is they've all been lackeys for him for 2 years and have done all the things he's asked them to do. And so now you're starting to see the canary in the coal mines starting to do these things, trying to distance himself from the president. You just can't do that after you've given him carte blanche and just been lemmings on all these issues. And, some Republicans are starting to test the water, to Tim's point. Back to Oklahoma for a second. The Attorney General, Norman, who's running, he disagreed with Trump on tariffs. He disagreed with Trump's inexplicable decision to buy a whole bunch of Argentinian beef last week instead of giving it those contracts to American producers. You just don't see that. Tom Cotton doing the same thing. Like, you're starting to see Republicans starting to say, hey, my politics are now such that I can't align with this guy because his numbers are just horrible. Even in the Republican Party, now only about a third of Republicans say he's doing a very good job. They're starting to see that he's a problem for even turnout for Republicans. And so I think the interesting thing is you're starting to see some people try. You and I know from our own history, it is really hard to separate yourself from a president in a midterm election.
Yeah, and it's also hard to kind of have a massive evolution on your website, like in a matter of weeks before the election.